Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast, a platform that features professionals across a variety of industries and promotes growth mindset principles with a central pillar of championing the achievements of women. Our conversations explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to growth and empowerment. Today, we're speaking with Stephen Shedletzky, a keynote speaker and renowned expert in leadership and organizational culture, known for his compelling insights in fostering speak-up cultures where every voice is heard. A sought-after speaker, coach, and advisor, Shed has led hundreds of keynote presentations, workshops, and leadership development programs around the world. And as a thought leader on psychological safety in the workplace, he supports leaders and organizations in all industries where human beings work. His book, Speak Up Culture: When Leaders Truly Listen, People Step Up, explores what a speak-up culture is, what the role of leadership is in fostering and maintaining one, and how you can advance your leadership journey through your actions. Let's get started.
Welcome, Simon Sinek, or AKA known as Shed, to friends.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, Share was already taken, so I go by Shed.
Well, thank you so much. I actually got to know some of your friends from Simon Sinek forum. And I believe that you were also part of Simon Sinek team.
Yeah.
He was really instrumental, although I have not yet talked to Simon or emailed him. I will one day. So I know Macri, Sasha Strauss,
Yes.
Kristen Habib, all amazing leaders. So I must talk to Shred. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and great to be in company with all those awesome people as well.
I mean, it's a great community, so I'm really very grateful. And congratulations on starting your podcast. Stress Some
Thank you
Light.
so much. Yes.
And I love
having
your
fun with them.
book, Speak Up Culture. And I am in the habit of assigning some of my Gen Z team players to actually read and do book review. Because after college, people just sometimes don't read.
Thank you for that. Feel free to encourage them to leave an Amazon review. Those are always appreciated for the algorithm.
Of course.
You can have them do that too.
So we're going to talk about leadership, trust, and speak up culture. I must be honest that I did not have a chance to really prep that much. And in the old days, I would be very concerned. But I did have an episode with Seth Godin early this year. He said, "Don't have any questions. I don't really want to know. We're just going to talk." Now, I kind of did a balance this morning. I binge listening to Shed Some Light on Trust, the Freedom Jar. So we're going to talk about some of these things. So to start with, most people think that speak up culture encourages an open door policy. But it goes much deeper than that, I think. Open door does not mean open mind. So I love the fact in Shed Some Light that you talk about the capital L and then the lowercase l. Do you want to start with that and familiarize our audience with what the difference between capital L leaders and lowercase l leaders?
Cool. Yeah, so that's kind of two different questions. I'm happy to answer them both. So I love that. Just because you have an open office door doesn't mean you have an open mind. That's such a good comment. So I'm not against open office door policies. I just believe that they're incomplete. They're incomplete for a few reasons. One, sometimes your office door should be closed. Sometimes you're having a conversation or a meeting that should be a closed door meeting. It is appropriate for it to be a closed door meeting. What's the stats? It takes about 20 minutes for us to get into deep focus work mode, but on average, we're disrupted by a notification every 7 minutes. I think it's even less than that, or an interruption every 7 minutes. So we've designed modalities of work that are so reactive and that don't allow us to get into deep thinking doing mode, which is key. So sometimes our office door should be closed because we should be focused on doing something. That's okay, Having an open office door at particular times is great, but it is too passive. We also need to actively roam the halls, physically or virtually. I've heard so many leaders go, well, my office door is always open and nobody comes in and shares or speaks up. It's like, yeah, great. You have an open office door and people are terrified to go in because it doesn't feel safe or doesn't feel worth it. Bravo to you, right? Actively roam the halls, actively encourage and reward people to speak up and use their voice. I've heard folks say I make my office fun and I have a whiteboard that people can draw on and candy and toys. And I'm like, cool, not complete, right? So we need to actively roam the halls as well. As well, in the modern world of work, where there's hybrid work arrangements, there's remote cultures as well, where have all the office doors gone? And so sometimes to say my office door is always open, you don't even have an office, right? So open office door policy, fine, but incomplete. We actually need to actively roam the halls physically or virtually. And then the whole distinction I make with leadership. So I say that there's capital L and lowercase l leadership. Capital L leaders have the title. Manager, director, VP, SVP, someone in the C-suite. It is literally in your title that you lead and you formally have direct reports. But just because you have the title doesn't mean you have the behavior. We hope that you do. You have a responsibility to have the behavior, but the title is not a hall pass for leader, right? The only true test of leader is, do people choose to follow you? And there are tons of people who have no formal authority. They're a lowercase l leader, but they behave as a leader do, and people choose to follow them. And so capital L and lowercase l leadership is an invitation for folks to behave into the role if they have it, or to choose the behavior even if they don't yet have the formal title of leadership, yet or ever.
That's awesome. Do you want to now talk about the behavioral attributes?
There's work that I did in partnership with my dear friend Rich Davini, who I met through the Simon Sinek universe as well. Rich is a 23-year veteran of the U.S. Navy SEALs and led training and development for one of the elite SEAL teams. He understands trust, performance, leadership, not just from a theoretical, but a practical, real point of view. And he's one of the most humble and effective leaders I've ever met and worked with. So I love Rich. And so Rich and I went through the process of, okay, if there are capital L and lowercase l leaders, then what's a definition of leadership? So I've put forth in my podcast, Shed Some Light, a definition of leadership, which to me is the attempt to leave the people and world around us better than when we found it. That's the definition for me. I'm happy to chat more about some of the intricacies of that, specifically around the word attempt and better. But then Rich and I went through a whole list, I think like 15 or 20 different behavioral attributes, and we got it down to 3. Only 3 attributes that all leaders must have to be worth following. And the 3 that we got to were decisiveness, compassion, and confidence. So decisiveness, which it's the first one, because decisions are tangible. You can choose who to follow based on the things they say and the behaviors that they display and the decisions that they make. Decisiveness is the ability to make quick, effective decisions, sometimes with limited data. And saying, I'm choosing to make no decision here is still a decision, so long as it's communicated. But if you make that a habit or a default, you're likely indecisive. And it's hard to follow an indecisive leader. Sometimes it's appropriate to say, I'm choosing to pause. That can be totally strategic and appropriate, but that shouldn't be the default. Compassion is I do the work to understand how you feel, and I even have the desire to alleviate pain or have sympathy, but do something about it. It's not empathy, because we can't access empathy for all people at all times. It's just not possible. We are but one person with one lived experience. Empathy is great, but I don't think empathy should be the standard, because sometimes it's inaccessible or hard to access. So compassion, I do the work that even if I can't actually fully understand what you're experiencing or feeling, I know that you're feeling, and I'll do everything in my power to try to understand, connect, or even if I can't, I know that you're feeling, and I'll behave appropriately with that, right? And then confidence, the best version of confidence, not arrogance. That's just loud insecurity. It is dangerous, and I would say near impossible, to follow an insecure leader. We follow secure leaders, and secure leaders have the self-efficacy to know, these are my strengths. This is where I rock. This is where I'm deficient. This is why I need a team and the people around me. And that's confidence sort of to the best of the ability. And then there are a few that we left off the list that I know you might be interested about as well, but I'll pause and see what you have to say
I'm going
there.
to riff on this part when you said the loud, insecure leaders. Many times, those are the ones because they are highly accomplished in the technical competence, much more outspoken. So sometimes they get the capital L leadership position. And
Yes.
then it's not necessarily conducive to a speak up culture. For a lot of leaders, and especially in the old days, use intimidation and fear tactics. So
Yep.
that people will follow them, right?
Yeah.
And
Not just the old days.
that's true. So what do we do when we are like, for example, in a culture
Yeah.
with capital L leaders?
Gosh, you just hit the nail on the head of one of the biggest issues we have in leadership. And it's the difference between what's known as leadership emergence versus leadership effectiveness. Leadership emergence means who are the people that are more likely to emerge into leadership roles. But there is not necessarily a correlation between emergence and effectiveness. One of the things that we do, and it's a mistake, is I liken effective leadership to walking down a dock. And you're walking down a dock and there are people fishing on all ends of the dock. And if you were to walk down the dock and be like, who should you promote? And the way that we often do promotions is we go, who has the most fish in their bucket? Let's promote them. But maybe it's luck. Maybe they're fishing in the right waters. Maybe they do have the right technical competency. But we're looking at promotion from who's the highest performer, who's the most responsible, who's the best at the current job. Let's just promote them. And that's not necessarily the right person to lead the team. Meanwhile, there's someone on the other end of the dock who's walking up and down the dock, making sure everyone has water and food, is rooting and cheering people on. They don't have a ton of fish in their bucket, but they naturally emerge as the leader, the developer, the coach. That's the person to promote. They aren't the best fisher, but they're the best leader of fishers, right? But we get it all confused with let's promote the highest performer for fear that they might lose. And then we promote them into Murphy's Law and to their level of incompetency, and then don't give them the appropriate tools and development. And they're just frustrated because they're now leading a team that isn't as good of a fisher as they are, right? Duh.
Totally.
The other is I have found zero correlation between extroversion, charisma, and leadership effectiveness. And again, leadership emergence versus leadership effectiveness. We are more likely to promote an extroverted, charismatic individual, but that just means that they're extroverted and charismatic. That doesn't mean that they're competent and effective in the leadership role. And so that's another thing where we get these extroverted, outspoken, influential, but incompetent and ineffective when it comes to leadership. So we need to better define what do we mean by leadership, select people against that definition, and then support them before they're in role and when they're in role.
Yeah, I think by support also means finding someone that both mentor and sponsor them to make sure that they in a position that they can actually succeed. Because otherwise, you're so great at your job, then now you become a manager, a leader, whatever the company wants you to become, and you don't know for yourself that they're no longer judging you or assessing you based on other people's performance that you're supposed to help elevate. And you're still thinking that it's your own performance, and then you just keep running like that rat in the
hamster wheel. Yeah.
I thought that I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
Not only do you not get trust from your team because you think that you can actually get things done better and faster.
Yeah.
And you burn yourself out. And then other people will actually resent you for not giving them that opportunity. How do you feel about that?
One of the things that I'm noticing is there's a structural systemic issue as well. Because I wish it were that clean cut of your individual contributor. I still call it leader of self. But you're still a leader. And then there's a team leader, then there's leaders of leaders. But one of the things that I think we don't appreciate is, especially in some of those early manager, director roles, you have this dichotomy where you're now leading a team, but you still have your own deliverables. So it's like a tease. You're promoted into manager, but you still have your own deliverables and work, and you're supposed to lead the people whose job you used to have that you used to be the best in the room at. It's not like turning a valve and you're like, you're no longer responsible for any results. You're only responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. It's not that clear cut. And especially with AI, where we now have people who are managing more people and more work. So that's just an unlucky hand. It's kind of a mess. So that's also going on as well. But when you get into formal leadership roles, it's can you develop the bias of I'm now not only judged, evaluated on my own performance, I'm also judged and evaluated on the performance, the growth, and development of the people around me. And the true, most secure leaders view it as their role to how can I help support the development such that they can climb, whether it's here or whether it's with that coding job in that other company, because that's really what they should be doing. So that's another piece here that I think we need to acknowledge, that it's not clear-cut valve. It's a tough hand.
It is. One of the things that I really do appreciate is when I took Mark Green's course from Simon Sinek. So my very first 2 years, I was really eager to learn because I left my job and started my own consultancy and doing the same work that I did before, but I cut out the law firm as a middleman and I work with only licensed practitioner that practiced before the USPTO, that is the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So I know how to do the work, and I was a case manager. So I did all of those. But before, I would have to supervise a team to support the attorneys. So now I'm just supervised still a team that I have a chance to select on my own, not just randomly giving to you, right? And that I actually would have some authority to hiring and firing, which sometimes when you're working for someone else, you might have a title as a manager, but you don't really have any authority. So you're really not a manager. Seth actually said that. If you don't have any authority, you're not a manager. You just get the name dangling. There were times that has been really challenging, but I think that when I took Mark Green's class, he called me out a couple of times. I think that's one of the things that's very endearing about Mark. He's such a straight shooter, and I am petrified of losing face because I'm a Chinese Asian. So when he said that, I like what you said, but I think this is affected by your negative past. I was like, well, in front of like 40 people that I don't know, that's kind of embarrassing. But then he meant well, and I saw the sincerity, because some people, they're a jerk just to be a jerk.
Yeah, and it's actually destructive rather than generative, without care. Yeah, Mark has care. Yes.
So Mark had been one of the really amazing persons. I've got him on Virtual Water Cooler Chat a couple of times. I had him talk to one of my clients who was a GC then, and then they riffed a little bit. And the latest one that I had with Mark was when I really liked his candidness. And early on, one of the things, let's go to trust right now, I was tiptoeing a lot. Not wanting to be upsetting people, being a recovering people pleaser, still recovering. So he recommended me to read Kim Scott, the whole Radical Candor series. Can you talk to us about how to be a leader that is candid and gaining trust from your team?
Yeah, it's so good. This one made me think of a specific story, and it's a story I write about in Speak Up Culture. And it's a story that I had the pleasure of sort of witnessing and hearing firsthand. So I was doing a virtual workshop in this very seat, and I was doing it for a pharmaceutical sales team out of Latin America. It was one of the sort of silver linings of COVID is I got to do a lot more work with a lot more people all over the world because all of a sudden everyone was sitting in place. And I asked this team a very simple question. I said, hey, hop into breakout rooms and share stories that make you feel proud to be part of this team. And it's done to help them solidify and build sort of structure and flavor and meat around what makes their culture unique. And I sent them out. And this one woman in the book, I call her Sophia, and the leader Luis, but that's not their real names. And Sophia comes back from the breakout like a bull in a china shop. She's like, I have to share a story. Before I even prompted, usually as a facilitator, I need to work at it. Who has a story? She's like, I got one. And I'm like, okay, wow. And she shares the story in tears, saying, I'm a single mother. I have 2 kids. I was struggling. My numbers reflected it, pharma sales. And Louise, pre-COVID, he would fly into everyone's territories. And he's the type of leader that he would take the 4:30 a.m. flight so that he could start the day when they start their day. He's that type of leader. And usually when they would do these meetings, which was usually once a quarter, whatever it might be, it would be in person. They get to go around, do some field visits together, break bread, have lunch, whatever. This one was virtual because of COVID. And they hop on, and Sophia is nervous because her numbers aren't good. She's managing 2 kids who are homeschool now because of COVID, and it's not going well. She loses the compartmentalization of her job. It's just not going well. And she's concerned she's going to lose her job. And so she begins to prepare a PowerPoint deck that she's going to share with Luis during their touch point, which is usually in person, but not because of COVID. And she's essentially, I need to defend my job, is how she feels. And she hops on this call, and Luis shows up, and she automatically shares screen to show him this PowerPoint presentation. That's essentially how I'm going to keep my job. And Luis goes, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I need to present to you so that I can show you I have a plan and I'm going to hit my targets and this, that, and the other." And he says, "Take it down. Like, how are you? This is hard. You're a single mother of 2. What's going on?" And she breaks into tears and shares what's really going on and shares how hard it's been. And Luis says to her, "I got your back. You're great at your job. Your performance doesn't reflect you. Your performance reflects the context. This is not your fate. This is not your destiny. This is a moment in time." Now, fortunately, they had a bit more financial leash. Some businesses couldn't afford, if they didn't have leash and runway. "We love you, you're great, but we can't because of the context." But they did. And they didn't use that as a punishment. They used it as a runway. And he said, "This is going to be hard. You aren't going to hit your targets right now. That's okay. But let's support you. Let's put a plan in place. Let's figure something out." And she's emerged as an amazing, as she was before COVID, and she continues to be. But it was just this moment of, I think so many leaders would approach that with a whip, and he approached it with openness and care and heart, and separated so beautifully the difference between the context and the person. And that story just stuck with me. And I think it's just leadership at its best, of how you can be candid and honest and build trust and invest in the long term of the potential of your people, as opposed to a snapshot of what's going on right now.
So difficult to accomplish, though.
Of course.
Under this challenging test. I want to share something with you that I don't believe that I'm actually share with anyone. So here it goes. I have been in the legal industry for over 30 plus years. It can be hard, billable, things like that. So when I first started, I got into my very first firm. I was going from a temp to be a project assistant. Everybody loved my work, and I have a master's degree that I did not disclose to them. They were like, "Why did you not say?" I was like, "It's not relevant to my job." The leadership, one particular person was so good, and we are still friends. He's in his 70s. He's been my mentor, became friends. So he talked to the management committee about changing me to be a legal assistant or project assistant. He's a rainmaker of the firm, so he goes everywhere. But he advised the management committee, we need to get her to be part of the team. So changing from temp to a full-time person, then there were some other things that were happening. Basically, they want me to pay for my own benefits. So I look at that and the offer that they gave me, I'm like, we could do that. I would be first not respecting myself to put myself down for someone. And one of the guys that actually gave me the letter, he came to my office and just threw the offer letter on my desk. And I'm like, okay. So I wanted to thank my mentor for actually getting me that particular opportunity. But I call him and I let him know that, "Hey, thank you so much for everything that you have done for me, but I cannot accept this offer." He said, "What's going on?" So I told him, and he was in that position. He was like, "Don't do anything yet. When I come back, we'll talk." So here I was like doing Sophie, right? Trying to gather my evidence. Now we're timekeeper, so we have to keep our time. And at the time, I was like, if I asked someone from the financial services to punch a report, then I would have all my billable. And I'm building my PowerPoint presentation, basically. This is what it is. This is how much I have earned for the company, for the firm. And this is what you guys are doing. And I don't think this is right. So therefore, I'm going to decline. So I asked someone to help me get that particular report. The person that is responsible for that declined and said, I cannot do that for you because it will get me into trouble.
Seems fishy.
I said, okay, well, get ready to look for that.
Yeah.
The partner came back. We had a meeting. I literally spent the whole weekend putting my stuff on the PowerPoint presentation, about 6 or 7 pages. And here's how much it is that I made, how much hours I have billed, blah, blah, blah. Long way. I have papers all over that, but I did my job. So I went to talk to him and he said to me, so what's going on? I said, here's what happened. I would be so disrespectful to myself if I accept this based on all of these things that happened. And I don't think that you guys really appreciate me to begin with. So he's listening because he's also part of the management, right? And for him to listen to all of this, for me, is difficult because now I also am observing what is he going to do now that he had gotten this particular feedback. And like a lawyer, he then said, well, this is what you think that you're making for the firm, but when you turn into a full-time employee, you have to account for XYZ for the benefits. I said, but it shouldn't mean that I'm paying for all for my own benefits. Do you do that to other employees? That's a really good question. I may not be a lawyer, but I hang out with lawyers for 30 plus years. I learned a few things. I was convincing and persuasive enough. So he said, don't do anything. I'm going to talk to the others. So he went to talk to the others. You know what happened after that is that the managing partner came and apologized to me. And they reversed the decision of all those things and then basically accounted for whatever that needed for the benefit. I actually never told anyone about this since then.
Bravo and kudos to you. I'm glad to hear that you advocated for yourself and your own worth and that you weren't further gaslit. That they essentially said, you know what, you're valuable, you're right, and we tried to give you an offer that was the lowest possible that we could. And whether that was with intent or just what had been done in the past or what they thought they could get away with or what standard market, whatever. But good for you. I know my worth and I can't live with myself if I sign this. Good for you as well for, I think a lot of people and less grounded and less mature people would just be like, screw you and I'm out and I'll storm off. And you led with respect. You went to your mentor or someone that you had great respect for and you said, thank you so much for helping to make this happen. I owe it to you to let you know that the offer as it stands at this moment, I cannot accept. And good for him for going, whoa, not what we want. Wait, don't do anything. Let's talk. And it was negotiated and dealt with. It would have been great if the way that you received the offer and the way that the offer was very different. It wasn't. It would have been nicer for someone to hand deliver it and say, thank you for your service. We value you. Congratulations. Please review this and let us know if you have questions. Not, you're welcome. There are good lessons inclusive of, I'm really glad that you had the confidence, maturity, perspective, self-awareness, integrity to be like, I'm not going to sign this and I'm going to let the person who's responsible for helping to make this happen know that and see if it can be salvaged. And if not, gotta look for something else.
I think some of that bonus evaded over the years because I live in the very hierarchical structures. So that was when I was in my late 20s. Yes. And people said that you are quite bold. Some of the things that you do, I wonder why you have not gotten fired yet.
But it sounds like you're well-liked, a hard worker, you do good work, so you generate and offer value. And you were offered the lowest common denominator way of, here you go, you're welcome, you should feel lucky. And you're like, no, like I've got a spine.
Let's talk about naysayers. Adam Grant talked about disagreeable giver. And naysayers, for example, I just ran this particular speed mentoring session. And it was so fun. We had 4 tables on collaboration, level up, leadership, and selecting mentors. So we put different people together. There was an inaugural session. So we don't know exactly how things are going to go. And sometimes when you get people in a group, there's all kinds of dynamics that you cannot expect. And timing also had to be precise. We work with billable professionals. So like, why did you get us here at this time when you didn't start right on time? And so there was some interesting feedback that communicated with such negativity. So I was speaking with someone and I felt a little bit thick in my skin. So I try not to take negative feedback as personal, but we said something that's like, this is personal. How did we handle that type of negative feedback, but still wanting to maintain the course and actually acknowledging the value of this particular workshop and acknowledging the fact that it takes courage for someone to come and speak up negatively?
Yeah. There's 2 sides to this coin, which we can explore, one or both. One side of the coin is, what do you do as the leader when people are speaking up, but it's all negative, right? So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is what to do when you're the person who's speaking up and it's always negative. So we can explore both. I'll start with the sort of the role you're in and the perspective you're asking from. And I hear this often. I want to speak up culture. I tell people to speak up, but all they're doing is just complaining. And my response to them was, well, better that they're complaining to your face than behind your back.
Absolutely.
Like, though it's hard, you're doing things more right than wrong by the mere fact that people think that it's safe enough and worth it to be naysayers, to complain, to point out what's not working, as opposed to appreciate or approach it with a bit more respect or tact or kindness or empathy or whatever. You can't control what people say and do, but to me, it's a good signal. So A, people are speaking up, and people always have things to say. The question is, are they saying them to you? They may just be saying it behind your back or in text messages or in the meetings you aren't in. So A, it's actually positive that people are complaining, which is like a good reminder and a good rewiring. It's hard. It's the cost of leadership. But if at least if people are complaining, they think that it's safe and worth it, right? Then there's a couple things. One is I'll take from Dr. Becky Kennedy, who's a child and parenting psychologist. She's brilliant. She has a book called Good Inside. She's awesome. Dr. Becky has taught me that, and this is both for parenting as well as leadership. When your child or someone at work comes to you and they're pissed off and they're complaining and they're frustrated, I call it meet point dance. Meet people where they are. You can only point where you want to go once you've met them where they are emotionally. And then you can dance to make it happen and make that change happen. Dr. Becky would say, so someone's coming to you and this is the and you go, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm really glad you're telling me about this, which automatically disarms. I'm coming to you and I'm heated and I'm pissed off and I'm complaining. And the first thing you do is saying, thank you. Okay. I'm no longer pissed off, right? The second thing you can say is, I believe you. I believe that your experience is valid. I'm not validating every single thing that you're saying, but I'm validating you and your experience, right? Now tell me more. Just changes the dynamic so much, right? How can you approach with more curiosity as opposed to defensiveness?
Yes.
So that's that. Now you can also say, I'm so glad you told me. By the way, I do have a request if you're willing. We are working so hard. We're trying to do things as well as we can. We're learning. This is inaugural. We're making mistakes. I hope you feel this is a productive conversation. I hope you feel that you're heard. next time, could you take a breath and just think, how might I be able to deliver this feedback with kindness, with compassion, with a bit more appreciation of what might be happening behind the scenes? And you may not do that in your first interaction. Maybe it's the second or the third. But if people are complaining, at least they feel it's safe and worth it to do. And how can you meet them where they're at? Thank you for telling me. I believe you. Tell me more. Now, there's a different set of coaching and guidance and instruction for the people who are doing the speaking up, but that's around. I don't like the term, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. That's dangerous. Bring me problems, but bring me your thinking. How have you thought that you could solve it? Who have you asked or who could you ask? To bring me problems, bring me solutions too, but absence of solutions, at least at minimum, bring me your thinking. Don't just make your problem my problem.
I not specifically like the fact that when I used to be taking everything so personal, because it is person. I am a person. This is what I usually tell people is that she is so sensitive and she takes everything so personally. I just go into my attorney's office and like, I'm a person. What do you expect me to do? Not take it as a person. I love the fact that when you were saying that you have to stay calm that the person that is bringing you the problem, because they are just so accustomed to that particular mindset and not necessarily know the.
Or they're triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you trigger,
coming from a reaction, not a response. Yeah.
So I thought that was really a great advice. It's good to talk about that treat others the way that they wish to be treated, which is the platinum they were talking about. Care to elaborate on it?
You're making me actually think of I had an ex-girlfriend where we had this it was a serious relationship. It was in university, but we were young adults and we were taking it seriously. And we had one of these prolonged, messy, long breakups, on again, off again, just one of those. And we ended on good terms, which is a trap sometimes. And I remember it was her birthday the next day. And I knew I had a busy day the next day, and it was like 10:45 at night. And I'm like, it's her birthday tomorrow. I'm going to send her a text message. And she was in a different city at this time. And I sent her a text message, and I said, hey, I'm thinking of you. I know this is early, but I'm thinking of you now. It's your birthday tomorrow. I have a really busy day, and I wanted to just send you birthday wishes now so I don't forget, and I'm thinking of you. I tried to do it as thoughtfully as I could. And she doesn't respond. And the next day she says we need to talk, or it could have even been that moment. I don't remember exactly, but it could have been that moment of how dare you? And I'm like, what? And she calls me up and proceeds to scream at me that I'm the last person she would want to hear from an hour and 15 minutes before her birthday, and starts screaming at me and screaming at me and screaming at me. I'm so insensitive. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. It wasn't my intention. I'm sorry I had this impact. Well noted. I won't wish you a happy birthday ever again, but I haven't sent happy birthday greetings ever again since then. But she said to me, why aren't you getting upset? Like, why aren't you matching my triggered and anger and reaction? Why aren't you? And I'm like, because it's not productive. What will I gain? You're pissed. I don't agree with it, but I can understand. I'm receiving it as data. I now know better. Take care. And she was inviting me to take the bait and get into the trap of the argument. And I'm like, why? It's just not productive. So yes, take a breath and be calm, respond rather than react. I have a 7-year-old. I'm now beginning to teach him the platinum rule. It's golden rule. Golden rule is treat others the way you wish to be treated. Basic respect. The platinum rule is treat others the way they wish to be treated, which takes compassion, which takes relationship development. I'm now reflecting in the context of my ex-girlfriend. She wanted me to just get angry. I guess that's how she wished to be treated, but that wasn't to my values and integrity and beliefs. Treating others the way they wish to be treated, so long as it's within your own authenticity and integrity set.
I think sometimes it's not necessarily wanting to fight, but maybe they are living in situations where they really needed attention and they don't necessarily know how to get attention. And I say that because My father passed in 2017. And prior to that, they live with me and I work in the litigation environment. So I get to work so early in the morning and come home late. He's also an early riser and my whole family's an early riser. So 5 or 6 o'clock when I'm getting out the door, he would be sitting in the living room and then he would try to pick a fight with me. For what reason he's trying to pick a fight with me? And I honestly did not have the time and energy. So I was like, I really cannot do this right now. So I had to leave. But then I was actually talking to Sasha Strauss about this. And he was like, it's really the communications on that. I think Sasha had the similar message. It's like, make yourself available to the extent to meet the person where they are, not to be triggered, because that's the last thing that you want to do. And
easier said than done, but yeah.
Their perspective, but when you're living in sort of a deadline environment, I could not have done that. And I felt pretty bad. At the time, I was just not in a position that I can be that compassionate to my father at that point. But I always take my parents to vacations and do different things, so I don't necessarily have too much guilt. I think that I have done my best to be the best daughter that I know how to.
Yeah, I'll just say that communication is an art. It's an imperfect science. And so, it's how can you read the music in between the notes, which is his acting out. It was something else, One of the things that I'm working on with my wife is we work on how we communicate with each other. So sometimes she'll call me or she'll walk into a room where I'm working and she'll just start talking to me. And I'm like, I picked up the phone, but I wasn't ready to have a 15-minute conversation. So what we're working on is like, hey, where are you at? I'm like, oh, I'm sort of heads down in a work thing, but you called and you're my wife. So I pick up the phone. What do you need? What's up? And she's like, oh, I want to chat. And I'm like, I can't chat at this moment. Like, I could call you back in 15 minutes or we can speak after we put the kids to bed. I think it's a great skill as adults to talk about what conversation are we in before we start the conversation, create the container of the conversation. And to even saying to a dad or a parent or a loved one or a direct report or anyone, when I finish work and I come home, I need a minute. I need to get out of my work clothes and get into my home clothes. And we speak about XYZ before we just speak about XYZ, as well as I have rights and I can say, I want to have this conversation, but not at this moment. Can it wait 15 minutes? Can we do it tomorrow morning? So it's always a negotiation and try to meet in the middle to make progress.
For people who want to speak up, but don't always feel safe, well, leaders, either capital L or lowercase l, leads a team and suspect people aren't being fully honest with them. What's one thing that you would recommend them to try this week?
Call a spade to spade. The story that comes to mind here, and it's a story I featured in the book, is that of Alan Mulally. So Alan Mulally went from Boeing commercial back when it was performing better and more ethical to where it is today. So Mulally moves over to Ford Motor Company. I think it was 2004. And granted, he's very much a capital L leader. Like, he's the CEO and president of Ford Motor Company. So not just a manager, big cheese. But he takes over from a team that was previously led in a more tyrannic way. And so he inherited a speak up culture backpack that was like, you don't speak up. There were a lot of what I call watermelon meetings, where you have your green, yellow, red status meetings where everything's green, but really on the inside, they're red. It's a watermelon status meeting. Mulally noticed this after some weeks, that when you look at the financial results and the balance sheet and the innovation and all of the traditional business signals, the scorecard shouldn't be green, right? Not all green. And so after weeks of this charade where everyone was just placating him out of fear and out of what they thought they want based on their previous relationship and how they'd been conditioned by their previous leader, that if you brought a concern, you were made the problem and you just weren't at the next leadership team meeting. That's what they were used to. And so Mulally, after a number of weeks of this, he said, okay, we need to embrace more truth-telling in this organization. because I'm not sure if you've noticed, the results aren't good. And so either you're lying to me, you're lying to yourselves, or your people are lying to you. What's the truth, team? What's going on? And one person, a guy by the name of Mark Fields, who became Mullally's successor, raised his hand and said, I got a problem over here. And Mullally literally gave him a standing ovation, said, thank you, Mark. Who can help Mark? Someone raised their hand. I can help Mark. Great. Make it happen. Report back to us. Let us know what you learn. And a new precedent had been set. Mark also received an informal promotion. At the next week's meeting, Mullally insisted, sit next to me. I need to show the room more of that. And they totally transformed that culture. And we're the only major American car manufacturer that didn't need a government bailout in the 2008 recession that came a few years later. So call a spade, own it, even if it isn't your doing, and strive to make it better. Encourage and reward people when they actually speak up and tell the truth, as opposed to discourage and ignore or punish.
Yeah, and one of the things that I work with a lot of Gen Zers on my team, it started maybe about 3 years ago. I have actually had many learning moments from these young creatives. And part of it is that they didn't necessarily have the guidance. And a lot of them that I actually know, like the computer science major, she started college during COVID. That's her first semester. So they don't know anything about work rules or how to gain trust or actually give trust. So that has been really interesting. And I think that for the last few years, I've worked really hard to be open-minded, not necessarily, my door is not always open. I'm in my basement. Sometimes they're afraid of getting feedback because it's their whole identity. And especially with creatives, art is
so subjective.
Yes.
Yeah.
So part of it is trying to encourage a team that actually know that the other people on the team that give feedback are not necessarily criticizing you. They're helping you and the company itself to push the work product. For example, until a filing is completed, during the process of prepping a filing, some of the filing that I do is $51,000 of petition filing fee. That is no small change. So if you actually have a team that actually can call it spade to spade, then you save a whole lot of problems later on once it's filed. Because once it's filed, then you have a lot of correction to make, embarrassment to the client, all kinds of things. So that's the type of culture that I'm trying to work. Doesn't always work, but I'm working hard on it.
Yeah. You mentioned before that culture is like pickle brine, right? So you have these cucumbers who come in, people, whether they're Gen Z or whoever, when they come into the environment, they become pickles, and the environment determines the pickles that they become. And one of the things as you're interviewing and hiring and onboarding is, how do you like to receive feedback? And if the answer is E, none of the above, that's not going to go well for you here. Now, there's a way that we deliver feedback here. There's a way that we try to add to each other's work. We don't attack the person. We attack the problem and the idea, right? But it's a training of, if you want to be part of a work environment where there's no productive criticism or constructive conversations of how to improve how we show up in the work that we do, this isn't going to go well for you. But if you're willing to do that in a productive, generative way, if you're willing to learn and get better at it and contribute to the work of others, you'll do great here.
Awesome. Well, Shed, thank you so much. How can we support you other than leaving Amazon review for Speak Up Company?
Thank you. Yeah. Read the book, leave an honest review. Doesn't need to be 5 stars, just needs to be honest. And I have a new podcast called Shed Some Light that you reference as well. All roads lead to my website, shedinspires.com, SHED inspires.com. Has everything there. And I'm very active on social media, especially LinkedIn. So feel free to follow and connect as well, which is where we've met. So yeah, it's great to finally have this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. Take care.
Thank you.